Welcome to the Sibling Rivalry panel with three guests who are parent coaches and parents themselves sharing their amazing wisdom, mostly around some form of conscious parenting and attachment theory. Those are sort of the primary bodies of wisdom that we've tapped into here. I am super impressed with everyone that's on this panel. You will hear from them, they'll introduce themselves so you'll know a little bit about them. One of my hopes is to expose people to wonderful coaches who are available for you to be able to get some support from on your parenting journey. Sibling rivalry and sibling conflict can be really, truly one of the things that causes us to feel like our home is not harmonious and to feel like we're struggling to make it through every single day. And it contributes to a tremendous amount of parent guilt. So please watch, listen in, and reach out to these amazing coaches if you feel like you want some additional support. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear what you think about this. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Deb Blum here, and we are here today talking about sibling fighting and sibling conflicts and sibling rivalry. And I have three guests today, all in the parent space, parent coaching space. And as you know, we have 9 speakers over the course of this, whatever this is, the sibling rivalry panels. And so before we get started in diving into our awesome content, I would love to have you, Rachel, start just doing a quick introduction, just a little bit about what you do professionally and your kids.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Rachel Duffy, and I am a conscious parenting coach. I operate a business called Sagacity Lab, and I have 3 kids. I have twin boys who are 8, and I have a daughter who is 7.
Great. Thank you.
Beth?
Sure. I'm also a conscious parenting coach and a relationship coach, and I help moms who are anxious about their parenting quiet that critical inner voice and get to the root of what they really want to do and be in their parenting role. I have 2 little kids. My boy just turned 4, and I have a 6-year-old daughter.
Great.
And so Tosha.
Thank you. I'm Tosha Schore. I have 3 boys who are now 13, 15, and 17. I am the co-author of a book called Listen, 5 Simple Tools to Meet Your Everyday Parenting Challenges. And I am a parent coach on a mission to create a more peaceful world, one sweet boy at a time. And I do that by teaching parents how to discipline their young boys without any punishment at all.
Beautiful. Thank you to all of you and welcome. I also have kids and I've been in the parent coaching space for about 7 or 8 years. My boys are 16 and 17. Great. So I think that the best way to start is to keep it a little bit open-ended. And I would love for each of you to share just a little bit about what you think sibling rivalry really is. Like what's kind of at the root of sibling rivalry and what's been maybe just a little bit about your experience. And then we can go into maybe some specific directions after that. Tosha, are you willing to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I was laughing actually when you asked because I'm not a big why person, right? I think you know that. I'm very pragmatic. Okay, what are we going to do? How can we move forward? And I don't spend a ton of time trying to figure out the why. And I actually spend a lot of time encouraging parents to let go of the why as we build connection and let the why unfold. So I don't know why sibling rivalry happens. My best guess is because there's a fight for limited resource, right? So we've got a parent or maybe 2 parents, and when we have one kid, it's I don't want to say easy, it's never easy, but it's less challenging than when there's another one that comes into the picture and is fighting for the attention of the parent or parents. And I definitely can say that over the years in working with parents, I see a pattern of older children in particular struggling with siblings, and I deal a lot with, as you know, boys who are struggling with aggression, and not always, but oftentimes it's an older child whose behavior shifted when the younger one came into this world. So yeah, I mean, I'd start with that. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but that's
Yeah.
how I would define, I guess, a sibling rivalry. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like it's partially that it's when the sibling came on and it's the vying for the resources, but it's also maybe just, I think a lot of times we don't know that there needs to be some preparation work done, and that we don't know that there might be some other strategies that need to be put in place to support that older child when the new one comes. And we just like, oh, we're having a baby, everyone should be excited, and we forget that there's other stuff, other feelings, other needs that are going on in that older child that need to be proactively dealt with.
Right. And why, I mean, and in a way, like, why would that child be excited? I mean, I'm an only child. Like, I still wouldn't be excited if I had to share.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I love being an only child. It's great, right? So if you think about it from the child's perspective, we're all excited that these other kids coming along. And meanwhile, this kid's going, well, actually, things are pretty good. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure what to change around here. And
Yeah.
hang on, like, I wasn't good enough. Sometimes that comes into play, right? Like, what? This isn't good enough. I'm not good enough. You have to go have more. So there are
Yeah.
lots of things that can come up, especially for the older ones, but not only for the older ones.
Yeah, totally. But it's good. It's good to unpack that. And I also think that what's important to just say here is that I don't think it's ever too late to repair it. Like, so, even if your kid, even if that happened and you're like, I didn't know I had to do that. And, oh, that's part of it. Oh, cool. So now's just an opportunity to, to do it different today and to, meet that child's needs today. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. How about you, Beth? What are your thoughts on sibling rivalry?
Yeah, I feel like it is vying for a better attachment with the caregiver that you prefer for the most part. But I'm thinking about like kind of my past and stuff. And I grew up with a brother who always beat me up, and we had a lot of fights between us. And so I think two things happened in my childhood. And one was that he would get spanked or punished by my dad for hitting me. And my mom would view it as like I instigated that, and she was seeing her baby get hurt, and it was very painful for her. So she started to prefer him a little bit more. And then because he felt in his mind that I led to him being looked at that way and being punished and hurt, that then I was a problem. So it just kept like continuing. And then another thing that I see that happened was that I was the child who triggered my mom more, also just in the way I was. I would hum or sing or whatever, things that she just didn't have time or patience for. So then I was like the black sheep or whatever, like the not preferential child. So she had a really good relationship with him and not with me. And so maybe there was some competition there. So I think there's always like more things at the root of it. And really it's just, because if you go punish one kid for the fight and you really don't know what happened, and both kids were really trying to get their needs met, then it's like, who did you choose to meet their needs in that moment? So the stuff that I do is all about toddlers and how they, hit each other and bite and do that kind of stuff. They're trying to get their needs met, and responding from such a neutral place can be such a challenge sometimes. Just like, okay, let's just meet both your needs right now and not choose sides and not get into my own fear, because it would be so easy to be triggered and be like, oh my God, don't beat up my daughter, and like relive my stuff. So I really have to like pay attention to what I'm actually afraid of in the moment.
Yeah. So I hear that there are many elements that are happening in your mind at the time that you're facing it. You're having to, do your own process to regulate yourself and to not project your stuff onto them at the same time, and to kind of take care of yourself at the same time. And that is what enables you to be able to come in with more neutrality. And because it is in that place, it is so easy, like you said, to just to be reactive, just to be like, I saw you do that, you shouldn't do that, and just come in, but often, like you said, it also more likely there's some other stuff going on. Like both kids aren't getting something that they think that they want. I mean, that's the other thing about sibling rivalry. It's easy. It is, I think it's vying for parents' attention and limited resources. But I also think that there's just, sometimes it's just like, they just like don't want to give you that thing that you want, or it's like just other things happening, just like normal conflict that happens in a family. So and that's part of the challenge of using the word sibling rivalry. It's kind of like there's sibling fighting, there's sibling conflict, there's sibling rivalry. Are they all the same thing? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that they are. I think there are like many dimensions and so let's open this conversation to all of them. Anything you want to talk about. I don't want you to feel like we have to talk about it like a problem of this like big thing called sibling rivalry, like as if this is a pathology in the home. It's kind of like, it's probably a spectrum, right? And
Sure.
Some people, when we get to the place of sibling rivalry, it's like we've defined it. It's almost like, oh, that's a problem. That's the big problem, but really, many people are just dealing with like run of the mill fighting, and it's driving them freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Beth. Yeah. Thank you for that. Rachel, how about you?
So I'm actually glad you said what you just said, because what I wanted to open with is that sibling rivalry is a normal thing. It happens in every single household where there is more than one child to some degree. So first of all, we have to normalize it in the sense that there is no pathology here. Sure, when things escalate to physical violence, then the intervention on the part of the parent has to change. But, we all deal with it to some degree. And sibling rivalry really has multiple levels to it. There's the surface level problem, which is whatever is happening in that moment between the children. But it's almost never really about that. It's on a deeper level, it is your job as the parent to understand what is my child trying to say to me right now. Sometimes it's vying for resources, but other times they're actually just trying to communicate a need that has nothing to do with the surface level behavior and situation. It's just an emotional need that is not getting met either by the sibling or by one of the parents or at school, or who knows, there could be multiple levels of needs that children don't know how to express because they can't articulate, and it comes out in all kinds of behaviors. So whenever we see a quote unquote bad behavior from a child, it is always them trying to communicate a need to us. And so we get hooked into this situation where two children are arguing or fighting. We get hooked in and we try to solve the problem. We try to say, okay, no, you do that. You tell me what happened. Now you tell me what happened. And now I'm going to be the judge and tell you which one of you is right. So we fall into that pattern. It's so easy. But really our job is not to be the judge. Our job is to take one step back from that and be more of a guide. We have to explain to them and teach them how to resolve conflict. And if we don't know how to do that as parents, that's going to be very challenging for us. And it's going to be very triggering for us if we don't know how to handle conflict in our adult lives. But for them, we need to guide them through conflict resolution. We need to guide them through productive expression of their feelings and their needs. And we need to attune to them and really hear what they're truly saying to us, because it's not, my brother won't share with me, or he called me stupid and that hurt my feelings. It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple things that I hear. One is that I love the phrase, the thing is never the thing, which is really pointing the place of like the behavior is just, it's like, I try to help people understand it. And I know you guys all feel the same way. It's like the behavior is just information.
Right.
It's just another form of communication. And if we so often just overvalue words and undervalue their behaviors. And I think this could be totally off, but I really believe, especially parenting boys. Tosha, do you agree with that? Like, I don't know. I think with parenting boys, like there's so often that I feel like I'm just being the detective, and the way that we help them, right, to understand how to communicate their feelings is by being the bridge between the behavior and then learning the language of being able to communicate what's going on with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really about in not even having to turn the behaviors to translate them into words. So, when Rachel talks about, teaching them how to express feelings, or I forget exactly the words that, or resolve conflict, I think you were saying, like my approach would be even to step back even one step further, because in the heat of that moment, or when, like, with the parents who I deal with, and I'll give it to you that a lot of parents who come to me because they're just like at the end of their rope and they don't know what else to do. But there's going to be no conversation in that moment about like apology for sure, or expressing how they're really feeling about whatever it is that's going on, and there's going to be no resolution of conflict in that moment. But there is still a lot that we can do. And so what I would coach parents to do, if the child's so far gone in that moment, or the children are so far gone in that moment that there's no thinking happening, it's not a teachable moment per se, right? They're running on emotion, would be to move in and listen. And one thing that they can say is, rather than trying to figure out who started it, right? Or trying to pin our kids, which we often do, into roles of aggressor and victim, which is also very, very damaging to long-term sibling relationships, by the way.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, they can pop in and they can notice that it's a mess and there's craziness going on. They can come in and they can like physically insert themselves if they need to separate in terms of physically, but to actually show up and say, I'm sorry I didn't get here in time.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry I didn't get here in time to keep you guys safe. Or I'm sorry I didn't get here in time to keep this from happening, or something like that. And what that does is not have a blame or a shame placed on either of the children, which also gets in the way of them being able to resolve and build closeness. And it also sort of contributes to the roles that, because it's often the same child over and over again in one or the other of those roles. So so ultimately, yes, let's teach them in a way how to resolve conflict, but the way that I would teach wouldn't be I think I don't know much about conscious parenting, but like the way that I would teach would be a more of a, it's not exactly a passive way, but it's not a verbal way, right? So I'm looking at, let me come in and say, I'm sorry I didn't get here in time to keep you guys safe, right? They're hitting each other or whatever. Protecting them from one another, and I'm allowing them to feel, and their actual moving through those feelings, right? So the release of the tension and the hurt and the disappointment and the anger and all of that comes out, that's actually healing in and of itself. And what I often, almost always find is that in the end, those kids are going to come around and build emotional intelligence from that. Their emotional intelligence is built from that without me ever having to have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Can I say something to what Tosha said? Because I love what you just said, and it is, in fact, very much in alignment with conscious parenting, and certainly the part about disciplining without punishment, because in conscious parenting, we don't ascribe to punishment or discipline in the traditional sense. And so, yes, I love what you said about saying, I'm sorry I wasn't there to help in that moment, because I do think that a lot of times we've been, at least in my generation, we've been told, when you have two children who are fighting, separate them, send them to a timeout to kind of calm down. Right. And even though we don't label that as discipline, it's not a punishment. It's more of, go somewhere else and calm down. The child still carries shame from that.
It's isolating, right? We're isolating.
Yes, exactly. And when you say in the situation, in the moment, I'm really sorry that I wasn't there to help you, it sends the message to the children, I'm here to be your guide. I'm here to help you navigate this situation. You are not a bad child, and you don't need to be sent aside, or you don't need to be punished for expressing your needs or your feelings in this way.
Yeah.
And I wish I were there in that moment to help you do it another way. But now that the moment is over, now let's talk about, when we talk about conflict resolution, you're right, it does not happen in the moment. In the moment, nothing happens. I mean, you have to kind of get through the moment, but afterwards, then you can start helping them deconstruct, looking back and saying, okay, what could we have done differently?
Yeah, so it sounds like there's like I mean, I think that you're right. And this is one of the things that I think is the most important thing, that most parents, when they first come in, they're like in the crisis mode. There is truth to like that. They're not even ready to start talking about being a supporter of, like there's this great opportunity, which is an opportunity to teach your kids how to be in relationship with each other and to be in conflict. But the first step that most of us didn't get taught is that the first step is just being able to be you and feel what you're feeling and have needs and have someone listen to you. And so I think that's often the thing that, that I've seen is that, what you're talking about, Tosha, is like, you're going in and you're basically saying you do very little. You're just going to be there as like holding space for whatever is happening, a safe space for whatever is happening in that moment, because they're in this part of their brain. And if we try to talk to them, we're trying to like make sense of something and they're not available. I think that's probably something that is a good place to spend a few minutes, though, is what are your, like Tosha, you shared kind of what you do first, but like when a person comes in and they're like, you can't go into any of the other stuff right now. I'm just in crisis management. If the kids are fighting, they're biting each other, they're, hitting each other. It's constant and I can't deal with it. Beth, I'd like for you to maybe, I think you had shared something with me I just thought was really interesting. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what your thoughts are when someone's in crisis management. What do we do? What do they do first? What's your advice to people? You are
Okay.
muted.
So my mouse jumped over to this screen and wouldn't come back to this one for some reason. I'm trying to think what I shared with you, but so one of the first things, like if I'm working with a client and they come to me in that state.
Sure. Or what you do. It's anything, any way you want to share it.
Well, a client, first we dig into, okay, why does it bother you? So that's kind of what I do too. Like, why is this such a trigger? Why am I so concerned about my child right now? And worry, what really is the fear? And so usually when it's a client, they're in such fear that they are going to screw it up and fail, and or that they've already screwed up and failed and their kid is abnormal because they tantrum so much. And so first we have to dig down into that. Like, so especially they experience something extreme. I knew somebody once who had a sibling who was schizophrenic and would kind of really act out crazy. And so every single time her son tantrumed, she was really worried that he had something was amiss there. So it's like, first of all, no, this is completely normal. This is just his age and he's going to do this. So first we look at really what is the appropriate developmental standpoint here. What do they really need at this age? And then why does this really bother you? Let's go into some things from your childhood, see what's really coming up for you here. And for me personally, it was from having my boundaries violated so much that I didn't know how to fix that for my children. So I had to learn how to do that first and to know what was okay and what wasn't, when to step in and stuff. But the main thing that we do, especially with little kids, is examine whether, how could I have prevented this? So there's the basic needs, like, are they hungry, sick, tired? But the biggest ones for my kids especially is, and I bet Kelly talked about this, has their love cup been filled? Like, have you interacted with them in the way that they perceive love? What is their love language? For my daughter, it's holding her. When she was like 2, and my son arrived, she started to just beat him up all the time. Like, where is this coming from? I knew, but like, what can I change? And I realized that I had been holding her less, like physically picking her up and holding her less, and just picking her up and carrying her around the house, like intentionally for a few minutes a day. And that's just problem kind of went away. There were other things, of course, when she was tired or something, we had to get there. But really, I had to pay attention to what do they both gravitate toward and how do I get present and give that to them each day to prevent this from happening.
That's really great. So there's something really sweet about it, because I think I hear a lot of parents, are like, oh yeah, my kids are fighting. Like, so this weekend I'm going to make sure I carve out some like daddy and me time or whatever. And I think that's great. And I don't want to discount that at all, but I do think sometimes we miss that actually it can be happening much more like fluidly through the day. And it doesn't maybe have to be something that you have to carve out hours to do. Sometimes it's just the little things that mean so much to our kids. It really is those little things. Yeah.
Can I say something about what you just said? It reminded me, I call it solo afternoons, where I have an afternoon with each child individually, not right now during quarantine, but before, where I'd arrange childcare for my other children. And once a week I would take one child in the afternoon and I'd have some quality one-on-one time. And my thought was, this is my time to connect with this child so that they feel they have attention, and I had it all planned out. And I did, and I still do this afternoon thing. But what I realized is my children don't always want or need connection with me when I'm available for it. And so when my daughter when she was, 5, 6, even almost when she was 5 and 6, bedtime was still a mess with her. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what is going on. I do these solo afternoons with you. I give everything I can. Why is this not working? And what I had to understand was she needed connection with me at 7 p.m., which was just the time I ran out of my own batteries. And so I had to understand that, yes, creating a connection and quality connection with your children is paramount, but it doesn't always happen, or maybe it doesn't ever happen on your timetable. It's on their timetable, and you have to be listening to when they are able to connect with you so that that connection really happens.
Yeah, that's so true. All right, can we pivot just a little bit into something? I had a question for the last group, but I didn't get a chance to ask it. And I'm dying to know what your thoughts are around sharing. Like if you guys have an opinion about sharing and whether that is, good for relationships, not so good for relationships. Does anyone want to take that one first?
Me. I hate sharing. I'm an only child. No. Yeah, I do have a lot to say about sharing. I think that oftentimes parents who will come to me feel the need to make life fair for their kids if they have more than one kid. And I guess we're talking about sibling rivalry, so I can stop saying that. They obviously have more than one kid. So, yeah, wait, I lost my train of thought. Tell me, what was my last?
It's sharing that people come to
the fairness. The people feel like they have to make things fair. And I feel like we can let that go, that rather than making life fair, if we can switch our goal to helping our young ones become flexible in their thinking, in other words, able to flex with life as it changes, that's a much more worthwhile goal. So, but what that means is that sometimes they're going to be unhappy And we have to get comfortable with that. So that might look like one kid needs a pair of new shoes because his shoes are too small, or they have holes, or both, or whatever. And so you're going to go take this kid to get new shoes. And the other ones are like, that's not fair, you know, I want new shoes, and he always gets new shoes, and whatever. Just because your other child or children are having big feelings about that doesn't mean that you as a parent made the wrong decision. So there's a bit about learning how to be comfortable with the discomfort of what the other children are feeling. So this idea of fairness, I think, just can be reevaluated a little bit. So it's not exactly sharing, but it all fits in.
It's the same. It definitely does.
Same category. It's the first thing that popped into my mind. And then with regard to sharing, like in the traditional sense of, you know, hey, you know, this is, I want the phone. No, that's my phone. I love this strategy that we write about in the book too, I believe, called I'll help you wait. And I love to teach parents this because I will tell you that you know, with my 3 boys, I implemented this from the beginning. And really, we had like no issues with this. I mean, sharing was just a non-issue. Like when I think back on all the issues we had, I'm like, woo, we had one non-issue. I'm gonna celebrate this one.
Yay!
Right, but the reason is because I helped them wait. I sat with their discomfort, just like what I was saying before. So if 2 children are like, you know, grabbing onto the phone or whatever, the toy that they want to both want at the same time, rather than trying to figure out who had it first, or being the cop, or having to, you know, say like, okay, well, you can have 5 minutes, and then you can have 5 minutes, and then you're like stuck on the timer, and then not only are they not having fun because somebody's like, they're like, how much time do I have left? How much time do I have left? They're not free to really enjoy it, and you're not free either because you're, you know, on the clock and feeling resentful about it. So rather than doing that, to say to one of the children, I'll help you wait. So that might mean, you know, putting your hand on the phone and, you know, holding that and not letting, you know, not pulling it out of their hand, but, you know, helping them kind of resolve. So letting the feelings come out as you're holding it. And if somebody gets it, or when somebody, you know, lets go and the other person has it, to say, I'll help you wait, you know. She's playing with that right now, but I'll help you wait. And what that does is that lets the other child play without that boundary of a timer or like somebody looking over their shoulder or whatever. It doesn't take the joy away. It also leaves the door open for them to share from a place of true generosity, right? To feel like, okay, I've gotten to a place of I'm done playing and I can give this to you now, or just leave it on the floor and, you know, very likely when they're young, just move on, which is okay too, but being done with it. And it also allows the other child who you helped wait to have these feelings, to release that rigidity around being able to share. So back towards the goal of flexibility. And then if I can sit there and just listen, stay close and listen to that child's upset, whether it be, you know, tears or tantrum or whatever it is, if I can just listen through, that's allowing them to gain flexibility. So over time, what you'll see is that he will or she will be able to say, oh, fine, you know, maybe at first it's like, fine, you know, you can play with that. I'll just go do something else, or whatever, which is fine. It's a start. It's a move in the right direction. And eventually it'll be much more relaxed, but it takes time. So with this as a practice, this I'll help you wait as a practice, parents will see shifts very, very quickly. That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's really sweet, and it's so compassionate, because it really is just honoring, like, listen, life does have a lot of disappointments. It isn't fair, and you know, you do need to learn. It's not easy, and I'm not going to let you do this by yourself. I'm going to be with you as you go through those disappointments, and it's just a very loving and gentle approach, especially because we're thinking you did this when they were really young. And then they cultivated this within them over the years. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. To learn how to be disappointed and not get what you want. I mean, wow, what a gift to learn at 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, right? Instead of when you're 25 and didn't get the job, or when you're 18, you don't get into the college you want to go to, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I want to have another conversation with you, Tosha, about that and how it relates to boys in future relationships with girls and women. So let's
Okay.
put a pin in that.
On another time, another call.
Another call.
Yeah,
Another
for sure.
call. Yeah. What about Rachel or Beth? What are your thoughts about sharing? Do you guys have something you'd like to contribute?
Um, I agree with, I think, what Tasha is saying, if I'm understanding correctly. I think that when you don't force sharing, and just like when you don't force apologies, not only um, are you doing a great service to the child who doesn't get the toy and who has to learn how to wait, learn how to deal with disappointment, but you're also doing a great service to the child who is not ready to share. Because when you force a child to share, or when you force a child to give an apology that isn't real, you're making them inauthentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, I want the toy right now, and I'm not ready to share. And that's okay. You don't have to be 100% pleasing and giving and generous. It's not always authentic. Sometimes you're not feeling generous. And I think for both children in that situation, when you don't force it, but you allow it to you cultivate the flexibility, like Tasha was saying, and you help them understand, you know what, this is life. Sometimes it's disappointing. Sometimes you're not feeling generous. You are worthy, and I love you even when you are in that place of being hoarding your toys and
Yeah.
not issuing any apologies for it. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
This is part of the human experience, and it teaches the child that even the parts of them that maybe are not so flattering are just as lovable as the parts of them that are generous and sharing and pleasing or whatnot.
Yeah, that's really a sweet thing to say. And I think it's a hard one for people to really get, but I think it's an important one for people to just sit with if it feels a little off, to just sit with that, because I think it's a really important thing. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And we want our kids to know that they're loved for all of who they are. And one thing I know is that the more we bring conscious awareness to those parts of us that we don't love about ourselves, the more likely we are to be in choice of them. It's when we suppress them and we have shame around them, and then we kind of like hide them. That's when they end up coming out as in all these other like sideways strategies or behaviors. And so ultimately it's the best, one of the best gifts we can give our children. Yeah. Beth, how about you, girl? What do you have to say on sharing?
Yeah, all great points. Just a couple things to add if you have littler kids like me. So kids, like developmentally, they're not really ready to actually share out of the goodness of their heart until they're like 7 or 8. So don't really expect it to happen before then, but you will see it happen. And then just some language that you can use with little kids. And I've used this with my kids and it works every time. So to the kid that has the toy, you say, let us know when you're done with that. So-and-so wants it. And then to the one who's waiting for it, just say, he's going to let us know when he's done. I know it's hard to wait, but he'll let us know. And then sit with them, like Tasha said, and help them wait. So then it works every time. And I've noticed that as soon as I say that, they're almost always done in like a matter of minutes. They give up the toy and say, here you go, and move on, and they're happy once the pressure is off to give it up or give it away.
Yeah, there has got to be some, I mean, there is like a human thing about protectiveness of our stuff. I remember hearing a study that was done one time about if a person's in a parking spot and they see that someone's waiting, they've tracked it, and they see that people will sit in their car longer and not leave the parking spot, but not consciously. It's
Are
like
you serious?
yeah, it's like an unconscious, like, this is my spot. Like, don't rush me. Like,
Resource guarding,
yeah,
just like
yeah.
animals do.
Yeah, so it's not like, there's nothing, it's not really a bad, wrong thing, but but the more forced we feel, the more likely it is to come out in these other ways. It's just sort of funny. I know. When my kids were young, we had a rule, which was that every toy in the house was a share toy, but that didn't mean you had to share it in the moment. It just meant that like all the toys are share toys, but when you first get a toy for 24 hours, you don't have to share it with anyone at all. And you don't have to know the other person, like can't even really like didn't even we just knew it wasn't like they couldn't ask. They just would never dare ask, because you got that toy for 24 hours. You can put it down and nobody touches it. You can leave it anywhere you want, but then it gets integrated into the playroom, and the playroom is now all the toys. If it's in your own room, fine, that they can be yours. But what was interesting about it was that well, so there were a few things that happened in that. For one, it just really kind of softened any of the ownership issues, because that was one thing. I think the more that someone felt that they had ownership of a toy, because it was like their birthday present, that's when we got into a lot of conflict. So just it being like every toy is everyone's, just like all books are everyone's books. But we also went with the mindset that, like, if you're playing with it, you get to play with it as long as you want. I don't think I was quite as kind to sit with my kids to feel their feelings, which I wished I did, but I didn't know. Maybe I'll try that today. Just kidding.
You still have time.
With my 16-year-old.
Didn't you say
Oh,
that?
honey. Yeah, right. Like my 16, come sit on my lap, honey. Let's talk.
They don't have to sit on your lap to listen. Don't worry.
I know. We don't seem to have many of these conflicts anymore. I just don't, maybe it's because I don't play with toys per se, but there just isn't the same level of, and also I think because of some of the things that we did when they were younger. But one thing we did do that was really a positive thing for the sibling stuff is that we also, when friends came over to play, you were allowed to take any toys. Both kids could take any toys they wanted and put them in their room to not be played with by anyone else. And it didn't have to be a toy you got for a gift. Any toys you get to clear them out, so that that way there wasn't the conflict of, oh shoot, I didn't want that kid to play with that toy. And then the other kid starts acting out acting out because they don't know how to get the person to stop doing it, or they're going to break it or something. That was actually more helpful for the sibling relationship than I expected, because we didn't have as much conflict between my kids' friends and the sibling. So
I'd be interested to hear what Beth and Rachel say about this, because I don't know what I think about that, about like having every toy be everybody's. There's a part of me that's like, I have things that are mine that maybe I got for my birthday that I actually don't want to share. And I don't mean to say like what you did is wrong. I'm not.
Oh,
It's
no.
not judgment. I'm
It's
just noticing that I'm feeling like, well, I don't actually know. Like I'm looking around like there are some things that I are mine, and I think that there are families that probably feel that both ways. And my guess is that, well, not even my guess. I can tell parents out there that whichever way you go, the kids are going to turn out just fine. But I haven't done a lot of thinking on this particular topic. It doesn't come up a lot in my coaching, but I think probably it is a useful topic for parents, because it probably is. I was just curious if Beth and Rachel have thoughts about it.
I would love to hear.
If they coach parents to do what you did, or do something different, or to figure out what works best for them. I don't know.
Well, and I just want to say one thing, like for me, when I'm coaching people, I think it's about, it is your own personal strategies. So like that worked in our house. And if I were parenting, if I were doing it all over again, it would be an interesting question for me. If I would do it any differently. I don't know. I did the best I could. I wasn't doing conscious parenting or hand-in-hand parenting or any of that stuff. I was just being like intuitively, and it felt right for our family. So
it sounds like it worked great for you.
Well, it did work great for us, and it was a really good strategy for us to have less conflict in the house, which was what I was looking for at the time.
Right.
And so that was the mission. Now, probably if I came from the perspective of a bigger picture, there might have been other things I would have put in place. But yeah, I would love to hear, Rachel and Beth, if you have any thoughts about it, like how you feel about, all toys being share toys.
Well, I think it's a little bit different for you because you had two boys. So I have a boy and a girl, and they just naturally drawn to different things. So that
Mm,
doesn't come up a whole lot. But you did say too that they could take things to their bedroom. So if they got something like for a birthday or whatever, and it was very special to them, I'm assuming they could probably kind of claim ownership over it and keep it in their room. And that's what we do is we have like toys that we just buy every day, go into the playroom, and then things that are very special that they longed for, wanted for a holiday or whatever, they keep those in their room. And they're never forced to share, but they also just let each other play with stuff. We just say, this is their brand new toy, let them play play with it first. And then if they feel like sharing, they will. It's
yeah.
really something that I'm kind of really hands off in anyway. If at some point they want to let the other kid play with it, then they do it. And if they're really protective, then I say, put it somewhere where he can't get to it. If you don't want him to touch it, just put it away where he can't get to it. And do the same thing that you did with friends coming over. Choose the things that you don't want to share.
Yeah, well, you're reminding me of that little nuance. I did say it, but I didn't say it quite as clearly that, yes, they could have things in their room, but here was the thing that happened with them. This is why it all started, and now I'm remembering, is that they wanted to have it both ways. They wanted to have like toys in the toy room that they could do whatever they wanted, that like basically they could have the rights over to basically say other people couldn't play with it. And I was like, but wait a second. It's like, this is a toy room where everybody goes into it. So if you want it, then go put it in your room. But sometimes they didn't want that because they didn't want to have to go upstairs into their room and play by themselves with it. So I was like, it's a choice you make, and it's okay. Either one. If you really don't want anyone else to play with it, go put it in your room, and it's totally reasonable. But if you don't, if not, then if it gets into the toy room, it's integrated into the family toy. And because, how do you do that? Like Legos. I mean, once a Lego's built and we've taken it down and it's now in a bunch of pieces, you kind of had to like relinquish control over that Lego. Otherwise, if you want to keep it together, fine, go keep it in your room and put it on a shelf. But if it's taken apart, no, we're not going to just keep it in plastic bags and you're the only one that gets to play with it. But I like the sensitivity to the nuance here. That's what I'm appreciating. That is, each family is going to have their own little, there are ways that they handle it. Rachel, what about you? Oh, no,
I was just
sorry.
going to interject for a second and just say, I think you touched on something that struck a chord with me, which made me think that the part that's hard for me is I want to be able to identify if a family I'm working with is doing this out of fear of conflict, out of an inability to sit with the feelings or the discomfort about a mess, essentially.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then I'm going to want to coach them a little bit towards that, because we can't tiptoe around. I mean, this is just that's likely just one situation where that fear arises for them. And if they're going to try to tiptoe through their parenting, things are going to get much harder as their kids grow and they move into a teen year. So I think that that's probably where my hesitation stood. So something that you said really just elucidated that for me, I guess.
Thank you. And, I'm not going to lie that when the kids were younger, there's some truth to that. That's what I was doing. I mean, maybe over the years, it wasn't, I got better at that. But when my kids were younger, there was no question that I had my own discomfort with emotion. And so to some degree, I was like, I wanted clear solutions that would not put me in the situation of having to deal with being like the arbiter of every situation. And I didn't have another strategy. So
right. And even if we're not uncomfortable, even if we're not uncomfortable with it, even if we're comfortable with it, sometimes we're going to use it. We can be used as a strategy. I think it's just important to note, like, okay, I'm tiptoeing around this right here because I can't deal with this right now. I'm spent. But I'm noting to myself that this is probably going to come up again. And maybe I want to think a little bit more deeply about how I deal.
Yeah, I like it. Well, I like the invitation to not be tiptoeing and to, to feel get more comfortable with being uncomfortable and be more comfortable with the mess of relationships. Yeah. I'm noticing the time, so I definitely want to. I want to ask Rachel if you want to give your last contribution on this, and if people are willing to stay, maybe we can all give a final round of the three of you can give a final round of your insights. But Rachel, how about on it seemed like you had something you wanted to say.
I just wanted to say, from a perspective, Tasha, you asked about conscious parenting. Conscious parenting is a no strategy parenting, because it's not about, do I recommend that you utilize this strategy of all sharing or of non-sharing or what? It's not, there is none of that really. And a lot of it is about you being clear that you are comfortable handling difficult emotions as they come up, because they will come up in this context of sibling rivalry. Whether you say everything is shareable or not, it doesn't matter. Sibling rivalry will still come up. So you have to be very clear with yourself as a parent that you are comfortable sitting with difficult emotions and comfortable working through your own difficult emotions and the ones of your children. And then in my household, we do a mix of both, I think. There are definitely some things that are special to a child for whatever reason, whether they got it as a gift from someone special or it was a very coveted toy, or I don't know.
Or a rock.
Or rock. Yes, some rocks are very special. And at the same time, other stuff like Legos is a free-for-all. But even in the Legos, there are some Legos that my daughter keeps separate because they are in her friend Lego collection, which is different from my boy's Star Wars collection.
Right.
I'm not going to pretend that I really have a deep understanding of this, but I get that there are differences. And so they keep them separate, but it's not to say they don't let each other use pieces. And sometimes they say, no, you can't use that horse because I only have one horse. And that's that. So we kind of do a mix. I don't really have a hard rule either way. I go with it whichever way seems appropriate for the setting. But I'm just always really clear with myself that when there's an argument around something, I check my own agenda, I check my own feelings, and I try to understand what is really going on here.
Yeah, great. That's really helpful. I think those are some of the most important points. So just to be watching for where it is that maybe you're shying away from discomfort. What is it that's going on inside of each of us? And then being able to be, clear on that. And it seems like I think there's like an interesting thing. I think you're right about conscious parenting doesn't really come with a set of strategies. And yet as parents, we often have strategies. You know what I mean? It's just that they're the strategies that work for our family. Well, would you guys be willing to do a round of a round of like, what's the one thing that you didn't get to say today that you really want to make sure is said on anything related to sibling relationships? Does that work for you? Beth, would you be willing to go first on that one?
Sure. One thing that we didn't really talk about that I tell parents of younger kids to do is to obviously model really good relating with the way you interact with them too. Also to encourage your boys and your girls to give affection to baby dolls or dinosaurs. Teach them how to be gentle and be kind, since they do tend to interact really aggressively at those younger ages. Just how do we be gentle? How do we love? How do we care for things? And then, of course, do that with them. I think it's really important to pay attention to what we're showing them. And also, I've noticed I have to pay attention to how I interact with my husband, because I see things that I do come out in their play together. So be mindful of how respectful you are to each other, and if you raise your voice and those kinds of things, because they're always paying attention. So if you really can't figure out what's going on, maybe kind of look in the mirror and see what's happening. And then, of course, use play to show them good ways to handle conflicts, work out the conflicts that they're having with their dolls with them, like kind of be their role with the doll and see how they respond. And it will also sometimes get them to open up and share a need that you weren't able to identify. Like, if I think Tosha was saying earlier something about, like, it could be something so completely unrelated to what's happening. Maybe they'll open that play and tell you what's really at the root of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Those are really good tips, all in a 1-minute summary. So thank you. Yeah. How about you, Rachel or Tosha? Do you guys have something that you'd like to share as a parting wisdom?
Right. You want me to go, Rachel?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, Tosha.
The last thing that I want to share is just that the situation is hopeful, that however hard the relationship feels between kids right now, there's lots that you can do to mend that relationship and to create space for it to grow close over years. Like we need to, I think, zoom out and get out of the micro conflict or conflicts that are happening each day and zoom out and know, just like I said, that there's lots you can do and that over time the hurts will heal, and the closeness will build. So yeah,
Yeah.
so just want to leave with a bit of hopefulness. And I'll share that it just personally, that between my three boys, there was definitely some serious sibling conflict when they were younger. And we used a lot of the tools that I mentioned and other tools, and they're super close now. I mean, the three boys are super close. I mean, we've been locked up for however many months, out together. They support each other. They help each other with homework. They do all these things. And when they were little, I mean, I had people worried. My mom would call me worried. People were like, "Oh, what's gonna be?" And I just said, "Don't worry, don't want this." And I just stuck with it, kept connecting, and I've seen it happen in many families, not just mine. It's painful, even if the situation feels overwhelming in the moment.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much. And I've seen some of the stuff that you're doing around, I think one of the things with boys is a lot of parents are afraid of their boys' anger. Did you hear me? Yeah, about anger. And I feel like that's something that you've been really magically helpful for a lot of families around understanding anger. Yeah, I just noticed that we're
You're cutting
getting,
out.
yeah, I noticed that. I just noticed that it's a little unstable for there. Okay, I will stop talking and I'll let Rachel share because it seems like you guys are okay.
I wanted to piggyback on what Tosha said because I want to encourage parents to take a long view of the relationship between their children. And sibling rivalry also changes very much over the years because what it looks like when they're toddlers is different from what it looks like when they're 8, 9, 10, which is different from what it looks like when they're 17. And it's very different from what it looks like when they ultimately become adults.
Mhm.
And so even the most, charged and difficult, quote unquote, difficult that we label relationships between siblings as children, many times end up super close as adults.
Yeah.
So, I encourage parents not to take it as a reflection of their own failure, because it is not related to that. It is, that again is a projection on the part of the parents. So take a breath, take a step back, remember the long view. Things will change. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
reach out for help if you need it.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a good point. And I think that's a great way to wrap up, is just to remember that out of all of the people that are in this sibling rivalry and sibling conflict panel, every one of these people is available for coaching. And so if you need support, to reach out, because it feels like, I feel like when I was raising my kids, the only real option that I remember was reading books or going to therapy. I don't think there were that many opportunities for me to get a lot of support. And so I feel like the opportunities are so great now, and people can find the right coach for them, and sometimes not even have to, go to one-on-one services. It's like, sometimes it's like doing one of your challenges, Tosha, or downloading an ebook, or, being part of a Facebook group. You can get tremendous support from people. It's not limited to people who have money. We have many ways people are helping people parent coaches are helping people in this space. So, all right. So thank you to all of you. You have been awesome. And as I expected, powerhouses of wisdom and insight and experience. And so thank you so much for being here. And I hope you guys all have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this series, the Sibling Rivalry panel. And if you didn't get a chance to watch all three, find them. There are 3 in this series, and they are on the parenting playlist of Inside Out Activism. And I hope that if you like it, that you will click the like button and that you will also click subscribe and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified of new videos that come through here. A couple other things we'd love for you to do is we'd love for you to share these videos. If you found them to be helpful, please share them with other people. I mean, what parent isn't dealing with sibling rivalry, at least to some degree? And so if you can share them with other people, I really believe it's just a great contribution to society, to all. We all created this out of the goodness of our hearts because we are passionate about helping and supporting parents. And so the best thing that you could be doing is sharing with other people so that we spread the word, more people get the support they need. And then ultimately, it is the way that we are going to, one of the ways that we will make a better world, change society, create a better homes and better families and more peaceful homes for people. So please pass it along to other people. If you have any questions for us, you can actually just engage in the comments below, either on Facebook or on the YouTube channel. You can engage in the comments. Our coaches that have been part of the panel will be happy to respond to you, give you some feedback. Please do that as well. And make sure you check out the show notes. In the show notes, I've included the bios of each of these individuals. They have all been so generous to give their time to us to engage in this discussion. Check out their bios. Go to their websites. Check them out. See if you have any interest in working with them or working with me and getting an additional level of support that might really help to shift things in your home. So thanks so much again, and stay tuned in. We would love to see you back here checking out more videos. Thanks so much.